So, how comfortable are you with price? How confident are you with your pricing strategy, even if there is a pricing strategy at all? Um, or are you just hoping that your prospects don't go down the price angle because you don't know how to deal with it necessarily? We certainly find it in the training rooms and businesses that we speak to that price is the one thing we lose business on, and we can't hide from pricing, or we try very hard to hide from pricing. So to help with that, and to help us discuss pricing strategies and relationship to price and pricing, I literally found a guy who wrote the book on it, Mark Peacock. You can see it over my left shoulder. I'm on mirror for those that are watching. So my left is my right and my right is my left. But his book is behind me in my on my bookcase. It's a cracking read about pricing strategies and how we can really develop them as business owners, but also as sales teams, what price means to us and our business. Mark, good afternoon to you. Tell us a bit about your story, where you joined us from. Why is price so interesting to you, and how did you end up talking about it in such a way?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me on your show. It's great to be here. So it's very simple in a sense. So I was in corporate life for 25 years. I was in all sorts of roles in marketing, product management, managing sales teams, and running business units. So price always played a part in what I did. And when I left 6 years ago now, I decided to focus on price because nobody else talks about it, particularly in the SME world, right? There's lots of business coaches and financial advisors and marketing gurus, and they might touch on price, but nobody really specializing in what I do, which is pricing strategy, i.e. helping businesses improve the prices they sell their products and services at. So that's kind of why I got into it. And also I knew that, pricing is one of the biggest levers you can pull to increase revenue and profit. Yet all too often, and I've seen this in large and small businesses, all too often people are scared to do anything about it, and they'd rather not upset the apple cart. And actually, there's lots of simple things that you can do with your pricing that make a big difference, both in terms of the sellability of what you do and in terms of the profit impact. So yeah, so that's why I do it. I'm based in the south of England. I've got clients all over the UK and a couple outside the UK as well. But that's me. That's what I do.
Brilliant, and thank you for that introduction. It's true, isn't it? Not really that many people talk about price so openly. I mean, before we dive in, why do you think that is? Why are people hiding from price? Because that's some big emotions you shared. People are scared to talk about it, for example. Why is that?
Yeah, well, I think fear is a big part of the lack of willingness to focus on it as a subject. If you're a small business owner or sales team and you're trying to grow, you'll focus on any number of things before you look at price. So I published a blog about a year ago called 10 Things a Business Will Do to Grow Before They Look at Price. And it was a bit tongue in cheek, right? But I've seen this in real life. And I've seen this in the corporates I used to work at. So we want to grow. So we need a new brand. We need a new logo. We need a new marketing campaign. We need a new app. We need a new sales system. We need a new CRM system. We need better salespeople. We need better sales skills. We need a new digital transformation project, etc. Right. So we'll do all, and there's nothing wrong with any of those things if they're important to your growth plan. But nowhere on that list will it say we need a new pricing strategy. Which is a shame, because actually pricing has one of the greatest potentials for increasing top line and bottom line compared to any of those things that I've just outlined. So yeah, it's very powerful, and we shy away from it for lots of. We say it's a logical reason. Oh, customers won't accept price increases right now, and the market won't bear price increases, and our competitors are undercutting us. So the next step is to do nothing as a result. Whereas actually what I think the underlying reason we don't take action is fear. Yeah, we are scared to communicate improved prices with our customers because we don't want to upset them. We don't want to choke off our future sales pipeline, and we don't know how our competitors might react. So there's lots of unknowns around it. But I guess the message I'm trying to get through is that if you follow a process like the one I outline in my book, a 7-step process, and you bring into play some of the ideas from the psychology of pricing, it helps you get past that fear and into a place of confidence, and in a mindset where you're completely confident about your pricing because you thought through all of the angles and all of the issues. So yeah, fear is the underlying thing, underlying blocker that basically stops people taking action. I would say, Rob.
Yeah, it really does lead to that inertia that you mentioned, and
Mm,
we find it a lot. And you mentioned you manage sales teams or work with sales teams previously in your corporate career, and I don't know about you, but one of the things we hear from the training rooms and businesses we work with quite clearly is price is the biggest reason we lose business. Now, surely that's something you've heard so often as well, and I just want to call it out at the front end of our conversation. Do you agree with that, or is that just an excuse?
I don't agree with it. It's not price that people object to, it's value. Okay. So if the price has changed and the value has stayed the same, then the deal I'm getting has got worse. So one thing you could do if your price has increased is look into what you can do to increase the value. So the price value ratio stays the same. I always say, if you're getting lots of price objections, it's not the price that's the problem. It's the value proposition that's the problem. And I think it's all too easy, particularly within sales teams, and I've experienced this firsthand, both in corporate life and in terms of what I do. It's all too easy to blame price, right? You know, I mean, if I could just have a slightly cheaper price, I can close this deal today, right? Just let me 5-10% more off the top line, and we've closed it. But what people don't appreciate is the bottom line impact that has. But also, my belief is they're not working hard enough in terms of selling the value, right? And you must know this in terms of the work you do. If you can correctly sell the value and communicate the value proposition, it becomes much easier then to justify the price, rather than allowing yourself to capitulate at the first bit of resistance from a buyer, or just jumping into the discount bucket as soon as somebody says, what can you do? So no, price isn't always the problem, it's value. You know, so what do we mean by value, and how can we communicate that more easily in line with what customers are willing to pay, is my view.
And also, I guess if as a seller, as a salesperson, you've got company X and company Y, and in the absence of me, the potential consumer, having no value or perception about why X is better than Y, the only thing I've got to defer to is your price. So you've shown me no reason why you're more expensive than this one. So can you either do it cheaper or I'll go over there?
Yep.
And you're right. We see it where, boss, if you just let me do it 5% cheaper, that will help. And it's absolving responsibility almost from the sales team. I've got no impact on that. So it's not my fault. And I wonder if it's a bit of a safe place for salespeople to go to as well.
Definitely. And, you know, it's not just salespeople, it's most people in business will have that belief. You know, MDs, business lead, commercial directors, marketing directors, everybody tends to have that belief, because I think there's a lack of awareness and skill in terms of understanding value and then justifying your value differential. So if your product is 10% better than somebody else's, and you know, how are you reflecting that in your price, but also B, in your price communication, by which I mean your marketing, the benefits that you display, your sales articulation of the price, and so on, so that potential customer that you just refer to, when they come into the market and consider product A or product B and your product A, they know, because they've seen all of the communication, they know that product A is worth 10% more, so therefore it's worth that price premium.
And do you see?
Yeah, go on.
Sorry, Mark. Do you see people not communicating their prices because they're scared? Again, this is more stuff we hear from the training room. Our competitors will see. We can't talk about price because I'm so bespoke. Sorry, I laugh just saying them. And they won't even contact me if they see the prices. So it's always the excuse. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, so I think what you're alluding to there is the question as to whether or not you should put prices on a website. Is that
Yeah,
what
the
you
price
mean?
communication piece. How are you
Yeah.
communicating that price?
Yeah, so I have a simple rule of thumb there. So depending on your business, if you have a business that offers standard products or highly productized services, which could include training courses, for example, then you're better off putting your prices on your website. If you want people to buy off the website page, then you need to have your prices on the website. If your products and services are more bespoke, which could be a consulting solution, it could be a civil engineering project, what an IT solution, then you are probably better off keeping your prices off the website, because the question then would be, well, what price would you communicate? You can't put your day rate on there because that's of no use to anybody. You could possibly put examples of project fees or price ranges,
Yeah,
depending on the size
prices
of the
from.
project.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll come back to that. And so on. But if there's a high degree of bespokeness, if that's a word, then the job of the website is to generate inquiries and leads. Price communication in that scenario then is how the salesperson and the marketing support for that product then positions the product and the price and the value.
Interesting.
Just to touch on
Yeah, you're
prices
going to say
from.
prices from. Go into that one.
Yeah, so I'm not wild on this because I mean, so marketing people the world over love this, right? And I used to be in marketing, so I can say this. Prices from 99p, prices from 50 quid and up, prices from £100 and up. The problem with that is, and we do it with the best of intentions as marketers, thinking that's the best way to drive in more traffic and more leads, right? And more sales through the website or any digital channel. So we communicate our lowest price. The problem with that is something known as a price anchor. So if the first price I hear about your business is the lowest price that you have, whereas it's more likely that if I'm interested in buying from you, I'm going to want to buy a more expensive product. You've anchored my expectations at the low end of the scale, right? So if you said prices from £100, but it's more likely the products I actually want to need is £200, well, now I've got to go up in price. Okay, so this is linked to another psychological theory called loss aversion or prospect theory, which you might have heard of. It won a Nobel Prize by Daniel Kahneman. And basically what it says is we experience a loss twice as much as the equivalent gain. So if you lost £100 from your wallet, you'd be really annoyed, right? But if somebody just gave you £100, you'd be like, oh, that's great, that's nice. But it doesn't, the pleasure from the gain isn't at the same level as the hurt from the loss, right? We experience the loss twice as much. And we can relate that in the same way to pricing. So if you say my price is from £100, but actually there's another product for 200 and one for 500, when I find out what those higher prices are, it's a loss because I'm going up in price. So I'm losing, it's costing me more money, right? So that's why I don't generally like prices from, unless you can prove with your website metrics that that's the best way to drive in a load of traffic. Far better to flip that on your head and come down in price when you sell. So sell high to low. And this is particularly effective in B2B selling, direct selling. So rather than inviting people to consider the price starts at 100, but there are other more expensive options, far better to position it along the lines of this. So we've got a couple of options for you. We've got our premium product at £500. We've got a mid-range option at £200 and an entry option at £100. So now as a buyer, my perception is that I'm coming down in price, so I'm saving money, so I experience that as a psychological gain, right? Which has far less impact than the hurt I experience of the increase in price. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and that's probably the best answer I've ever heard around the prices from question. I really like that psychology of it feels like I'm losing if the price goes up, but I feel like I'm winning If you
Yeah.
start with the £10,000 package and say
Yeah.
there's also offers below and below
Exactly.
and below.
Exactly. So it takes a bit of courage the first time you do it, because, you know, everybody hates saying the highest price, but once you get used to it and you practice it, it's not difficult, Rob, is it? We're just changing the script, or the, you know, the order in which we're communicating our prices. So this is the power of a high price anchor. You know, we just talked about the danger of a low price anchor, but the power of a high price anchor is incredible, because it sets a high threshold against which then your buyers then judge the value of any other cheaper options that you present to them. And you can do that in pretty much any selling scenario, particularly in B2B sales, I think.
Especially when we're talking more about the value sell rather than the
Yeah,
commodity side of things, which is what I wanted
exactly.
to touch
Yeah.
on, Mark, next, is about how do we know when our price is right? I.e., how do we know that with confidence we can say this is our price, this is the value equivalent, and how do we stop our customers just jumping straight to the price and commoditizing us, therefore devaluing us? What
Yeah,
are your thoughts
great,
around that? How do we know our
great,
price is right?
great question. I think two things come to mind when I think of that. So firstly, in terms of tracking your conversion rate, right? So if your conversion rate is really, really high, right, over 60–70%, so for every price proposal you send or communicate, you know, you're converting more than 70 or 80%, that's an indication that suggests your price may be too low, right? I mean, either you're absolutely brilliant at selling, you know, and that could be that could be true, or you're too cheap, right? So you're finding it really easy to convert inquiries into sales because the price is too low. So look at your KPIs is the first thing I would say. What do they tell you? If your conversion rate from proposal to sale is really low, like less than 20%, and depending on the impact that has on your business, I mean, it could mean that you're rubbish at selling, but it also could mean your price is too high. So that's one, you know, that's one way of thinking about, is the price too high or too low? I mean, I guess the honest answer to your question is there is no perfect price, right? It's very, very hard to know every single time a perfect price for every single client, but you can get closer to the best price. So the way I often talk about that is that rather than going all in with what you think is your best price for a product or a deal, let's say £5,000 for a product or a program or project or whatever it is, when you present one single price option to a buyer, how do they judge it? What are they comparing it to? So they might compare it to a competitor. They might compare it to an internal budget that they've got. They might compare it to a previous buying experience for a similar product. And we don't know what that comparison is unless we can, in our sales conversations, unless we can unpick it. So you can increase your chances of success by offering a couple of options around your price point. So typically, ideally, a low, medium, high set of options. So kind of like what we spoke a minute ago, but if you can construct a set of price offers so that when you present them to the buyer, you say, well, we've got a premium package at £10,000, a mid-range package at 5,000, and an entry package at £2,000 or £3,000, for example. What you're doing is you're hedging your bets, right? So rather than just saying it's 5,000, we've now got a price range of 2 to 10,000, in which we can then hopefully pick up on the responses, the clues, the signals that we get from the buyer about what their actual willingness to pay level is. And the beauty of that approach is that more often than not, that you'll be surprised how many people will say, oh, great, I'll take the premium package. That's exactly what I need. And yeah, I've got the cash. But if people are a bit more hard pressed in terms of cash or willingness to pay or perception of value, they can pick the entry option as well. And the trick there is, as a seller, you must not mind which option they pick, right? So you've got to be entirely delighted with any of those outcomes. The margin impact might change, but you must not mind. So that takes away the pressure then when you're selling it. Because you know, the sales conversation is now, here's 3 options that we've got for you. Here's the premium package, here's the standard package, and here's the entry package. Which one best meets your needs at the price you're willing to pay? And you let the buyer choose. If they really can't decide, then you do need to guide them towards one or another. But you've got to do that through some careful questioning and listening in terms of what they actually want. The second benefit of that approach is that it opens the door for a negotiation. If they say, well, look, Mark, you know, we can afford about £5,000, but we really love the extra things you've got in that premium package there. What can you do? Brilliant. So now we can bring those in and charge it maybe at £6,000 for the, you know, the bespoke package. So yeah, looking at your KPIs, your metrics, and then changing how you're presenting your pricing in terms of moving away from a one-size-fits-all or a single price option towards a multi-price, multi-tiered approach.
Yeah, it's
very
interesting.
effective ways.
Yeah, and I do like you. I'm from a marketing background, so I do enjoy this sort of the tiered approach, the packaging approach, and I think sometimes it challenges salespeople because they just think I'm just here to sell something. I'm just here to sell the widget, and I think that example you just shared there even helps scale and sell widgets because you can just have the commodity. Yes, of course you can have the commodity. This is the price, but we're seeing more and more. People do pay for service. They pay for fast delivery. They'll pay for better customer communication, better packaging, more reliance on time in full, for example.
Exactly.
So
longer warranty, you know, call out service, repair lines. Absolutely. And you know, if you can't think of ways to create different packages with service bundles, then and you're selling products, the easiest thing to do is volume discounts, you know, so where you can have 10 widgets and they're £10 each, so that's £100, or you can have 20 widgets and they're £9 each, or you can have 50 widgets and they're £8 each. Yeah, but you communicate the bundle price for each of them. So now we're presenting choice to the buyer, right? So they have agency, they have control over the buying decision, but you are subtly using some price signals with your price anchors to influence in a fair and transparent way their buying decision. There's lots going on there in terms of behavioral economics and the psychology of pricing that people I don't think fully appreciate, but it's it's a really simple idea, but it's very powerful. And you can, as you say, you can work it in pretty much any business.
A simple concept, but not easy to implement. I just think this is where modern salespeople, where they are getting almost ruled out of the sales process, this is where they can add true value because it's not about mis-selling. I just wanted to hover on that point. This isn't about flogging something they don't need. It's about enhancing an offer to add better value to a win-win relationship ultimately.
Exactly right.
On commodities, get out the way and let the computer serve you because what value are you offering?
Exactly that. There's nothing that I do or teach that should be construed as misleading or unethical. So pricing is absolutely an ethical sport, right? And if you carry out any pricing tactics which give you a short-term gain at the expense of the customer, it will come back to bite you in the long run. You'll lose the customers in the long run. It will affect your brand's reputation. You'll have to make decisions in the future which are harder than, you know, making easy decisions this year. So pricing is a long-term game every time you make a price decision, including, well, I'll just give them 10% off today and then I'll worry about it again next year. You know, there's always a long-term implication.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I think it's a good point to underline, and thanks for doing so. And we're talking a lot about the sales teams here and B2B sales professionals, but for those who are maybe more owner-managed businesses, family-run businesses who've done very well to get to where they are, but they might be struggling to break through the next barrier, and they've never really appreciated what pricing strategies exist. I know in your book you talk through a whole framework about how we can set effective pricing for those new to business. I don't want you to go through the whole framework here in this chat, but as a citer on that, where would someone new to pricing strategy, someone new to business, where would you suggest they start? Because you said there's 10 things they do before they mention price. So how can they take more responsibility around that?
Yeah. Are you thinking about a scenario where somebody's literally new to a business? They're a startup or they've got a new product or something
Yeah,
and they're trying to
there might
price
be a
it?
startup. They might be new. They might have just been promoted to
Mm,
managing director, CEO. They want to put their
okay.
stamp on things, but there's
Okay.
nothing there. They haven't got a
Okay.
pricing strategy. Where could they
Yeah.
start?
Yeah. I think it depends a lot on the stage of the business. So if it's an existing business and it's got, sales, so it's offering a product or service that has traction in the market and meets a need. Um, I think the start point I would challenge people in those situations to think about is I guarantee you your pricing is not optimized, right now. It won't be optimized. And the reason is you'll be using age-old traditional methods of pricing, such as cost plus margin, anchoring it to competitor pricing and discounting. And all of those things are okay. They're fine to get started, but in the longer term, they are not the best ways to manage your pricing for maximizing revenue and profit and the value of your business. If you're looking to exit or sell your business in 5 to 10 years, there is so much more value you can put on the value of your business through better pricing. So where do you start with all of that? That's quite a hard question to answer, actually, Rob, I think.
I like to
I
chat.
guess I guess the first step would just be to try and learn a bit more about the variety of pricing methods that there are out there. There's loads of stuff online. You could have a look at my book, for example, and so on. But so first step is just try and educate yourself a bit about, other ways of pricing and realize that actually there are some simple techniques out there that can make a big difference. The second thing would be then to try and, I guess, if you've got an existing business, where people get stuck with pricing is that they're always thinking about their existing customers, right? So we can't put prices up because customer X won't be happy. So to get around that problem, just think about pricing for new business. So if you're sat there and it's October 2023 and you're thinking about your business plan for next year, so from next January, and we've got a clean sheet of paper, knowing everything that we already know about our business, we're going to write a pricing policy to attract new customers, and it won't have any impact on our existing customers. So clean sheet of paper. So you can be a lot more creative and try out or consider many more different ideas rather than getting stuck with, well, we can't do anything because customer X won't like it. So my tip there when thinking about new pricing is just think about new business first. And then once you've got some ideas that you like, then consider how you could roll that back to your existing customers. And you might need to do a bit of, maneuvering and juggling around, but there's always a way to make it fit.
I
So
think
yeah.
it's a nice example, Mark, because I think especially looking forward to new customers where we are seeing B2B buyers getting younger, 65% now are millennials, and they are looking for more value-led solution selling, if you like, whereas your black book of customers might just be used to commodity. So stick them on a different thing, stick them to what they've always had, but forward facing, what got us here won't get us there. We have to be slightly different to a changing market
Exactly.
as well, right?
Exactly that. And then you can test and learn, roll it out for 3 months, see how you get on, and then come back to, your existing customers if you need to, and you can apply what's worked. But yeah, testing out new ideas is the best way to learn.
No,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
I remember the cost plus was a very marketing led pricing. I mean, do you suggest they don't work anymore, or is it just sort of an older fashioned way of looking at price?
Yeah, not at all. They can work very well, and you can have a very successful business using cost plus margin pricing. I guess the point I'm trying to make is there are plenty more ways to do pricing than just cost plus margin. And the trouble with cost plus margin pricing is it doesn't really take customer value into account. If you have a product, a thing, and it costs £50 to produce and you sell it for £100, so you've earned a 50% margin, yeah, you might think, oh, that's great. I'm happy with that. But what if we could do some customer research and find that in parts of your market, there's customers that are willing to pay £300 for the same thing. They might need a few extra bells and whistles added to it. But if you always take a cost plus margin approach, you're always governed by the margin aspiration that you have. Most businesses, they aim for like 40%, 50% gross margin, right? Very common, very standard. Well, who says that's right? You're just doing that because everybody else does that. Who says you can't find ways to package up what you do at a much higher price point and offer choice to your customers so that you can capture value in the form of high price from those people who are willing to pay more? So there's a danger that you're missing out. But not to say cost plus margin, it never works. So that would be wrong. Just like competitor-based pricing, it's not ideal, but it can work for many people.
And
but trying to move,
yes.
yeah, exactly. But trying to move more towards a more value-based approach to pricing is really what I will encourage most, businesses, salespeople to think about, because it's much more powerful.
I agree. I think it is. And I just think for those that might be new to this concept, I don't want to delve too deeply into it just for time allowance. But what do we mean by value-led pricing? Because it's a bit buzzwordy for those that might be new to it. It's like, oh, what does that mean? Are we just padding it? Are we padding for the sake of padding? What's your definition and understanding for an introduction around value pricing?
Yeah, I mean, I think a really simple way to think about it might be, say, for a consulting solution or an IT solution where there's a clear monetary benefit for the client in terms of the outcome. If you do this, we can add £1 million of revenue to your business, right? So if that's quite clear, and it's not always the case, but let's just assume it is quite clear, and you wanted to engage in a value-based pricing approach, a simple way to deal with that is to think about it as a return on investment. So if the proposition is, well, if you spend £100,000 with us and we can put £1 million on your top line or your bottom line, that's a good deal, right? If for every £1 you spend, you get £10 back. So that's an amazing investment. Why on earth wouldn't you do that? And as long as the buyer, the client, believes and accepts those numbers, then that's a really simple, simplified form of value-based pricing. So we're pricing in line with the value we create, which has got nothing to do with the cost of the service, right? So it might only cost us £1,000 to deliver that £100,000 solution, or it might cost us £50,000 to deliver that £100,000 solution. But we've priced it in line with the value of the outcome. So, but caveat, that kind of thing is hard to pull off. You have to be very good at value-based selling to do value-based pricing as well. So the two go hand in hand. So that's kind of one example. I mean, there are more involved models for value-based pricing where we look at the buyer's direct the competitor, the nearest competitor. And so, well, if they're charging £1,000 for the product, what are we going to do? So we start from there. Then we do a lot of work to estimate the value add for our customers, and then we can price in line with that. So if we think the value add, can generate significant extra value, let's say an extra 30 to 50%, then we can price it at that level as well. That's a bit harder to explain on a podcast call like this, Rob, I'm afraid. But there are lots of models out there that can help you get closer to value-based pricing. Understanding that there's no perfect answer, and it's more of a journey and a philosophy. I think you're always trying to get closer to that goal, rather than there's no magic formula that I can give you that just said that X plus Y equals Z. There's your answer. Go do it.
Yeah,
it takes effort and work, I'm afraid.
No, it does, and thank you for. I appreciate it's difficult to walk through what might be complex ideas, but I think for a takeaway here, for me, I've just scribbled that down while you were talking. It's very customer centric pricing rather than operational led pricing. Whereas
exactly
your cost plus is more operational led. We need this margin. What you're doing here is really putting your customer need first
Yep.
showing that you understand your customers, which is what buyers
Yep.
want these days,
Yep.
and adding that value in that respect
Yep.
of I understand the impact of your return on
Yep.
investment. Wouldn't it
Yep.
make sense? 10
Yep.
to 1 return.
Yep.
Rather than just worrying about, well, operationally, it's this, and we need a margin of this, which is very
Yep.
internal. So for me, that was my
Absolutely.
takeaway from
Yep.
that. It's
Yep.
very
Yep.
customer centric versus operational.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
that's a
Great,
subtle, very,
great way of summarizing it, I think, Rob. Yeah.
yeah, it's a very good takeaway. Thank you for that. Just want to touch on a couple of horror stories as we head forward, and a few warning signs, if you like. Can pricing go wrong? And what? Not that that's a leading question.
Yeah,
Can pricing go
absolutely.
wrong, and what are the risks and outcomes if it does? What have
Of
you
course
seen?
it can. Of course it can. We can overprice, we can underprice, and both can have disastrous outcomes. There's a great story about JC Penney's, which is a department store in North America. It's not in the UK, and they built a successful business using coupons, discount coupons. So if you went into a JC Penney store and the shirt was advertised at $50, that you could get it for $30, right? And that was the price. That was how they sold everything. And then I think it was about 10 or maybe 20 years ago, they brought in a new CEO, and he was from Apple stores, and he had a totally different outlook and philosophy. And I think I've got this right. So he wanted to turn JCPenney into the Apple of the clothing world. So he just got rid of coupons. His philosophy was, well, if everybody's paying £30 for the shirt, that's the price. So the price is the price was the new strategy. But can you guess what happened? So now customers are going into the store, loyal customers who are well used and like their discount coupons, seeing a shirt for 30 quid and saying, well, what's the discount? I'm not paying that. That's list price. So unfortunately, over the next 3 to 6 months, sales took a huge tumble. The share price of JCPenney's dropped like a stone, and I think within 12 months the CEO was sacked. Right, so it can be disastrous, because what he failed to appreciate was that the customer base really liked using vouchers and coupons, and really liked the feeling that they were getting a deal, a discount on the price of the products, and that's not to be underestimated. On the flip side, I had a client, a company that's ran very successful exhibitions all around the world, and their board made a very aggressive pricing decision, and they said, our exhibitions are so good, we need to raise prices across the board by 10%. Right, so it was a flat instruction to the sales team, and they didn't give them any support, any guidance, any justification. They just, right, go and do it. Next year's exhibition is 10% more expensive. Just get on with it. So, I mean, the sales guys just tried their best, right? They muddled through, and I think they got some at 10%, but many others they didn't. But the problem was it really scarred the sales guys, because they were dealing with really upset customers. And some they just managed to bluster their way through and get the deal signed, and others they couldn't. And then when I turned up a few years later, they were terrified of me, because they just thought, oh God, Mark's just going to tell us to put prices up by 10% again. So the trick is that then across the board, price increases are never a good idea. They are a crude and blunt approach to price improvement, and far better that you do it at an individual product group or product category level. Our bestsellers, we're only going to put the prices up by 3%, and some of the smaller volume products we'll put them up by 10% or whatever. Or you do it at an account or client category level. So far better that, and then the net outcome is a net price increase across the board of 4.3%. Far better that than blunt, aggressive pricing increases of the type that that particular company described how or suffered before I came along. So yeah, both ways it can have bad effects.
I guess that. Sorry, go on, Mark.
Well, which is just proves the point that you need to put as much effort into your pricing as you can, rather than just the last thought of the day, how much are my prices?
Yeah, an afterthought. And I think it ties back a little bit to a couple of bits you were saying around, don't put the prices up 10% for existing repeat customers, but look how you can for new customers potentially.
Yeah.
And also the JC Penney example goes back to the psychology of pricing, doesn't it? I'm winning.
Absolutely.
I feel like I've found $20
Yeah.
saving this on a shirt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remove that, and it's a
Exactly.
different proposition.
Yeah. There was another, I've just remembered another great example of pricing gone wrong, which was Netflix. So this is about 10 years ago now, and they were just moving into streaming because they started as the DVD rental. And I think their original plan was like $9 a week, £9.99 a week, and you could have both DVDs and streaming for $9.99. Then they decided to split the plan into two, one for DVDs only and one for streaming only. And they priced each of those plans at $7. So if you wanted both, the price had gone up to $15, $16 a month. So there was outrage, basically. They lost loads of subscribers. I think they lost huge amounts of share value and so on. But again, it was coming from a place of arrogance, I think. They were the market leader, they were the innovators, they were the disruptors. Just do it. So yeah, you have to be very careful, right? A couple of examples there for you, Rob, of where it goes wrong.
Yeah, they're very good. I think that Netflix one's a very classic example where it breaks down, isn't it? I mean, you said in your previous answer there as well. I just want to touch on one important point before we get some of your takeaways. Don't just go and put prices up wholesale, I think was your point. It leads on to my next question, because obviously we're recording at a time when inflation is very high globally, causing some real supply chain issues. And we're speaking to businesses. I think I spoke to one just this week that said we've not put our prices up for 5 years. Yet inflation is probably, what's it been this year in the UK? It's been 10%. Before that, it was 8%.
Yeah.
It leveled off at 7%, we're led to believe. I think it's higher, but who am I to say? We see businesses swallowing inflation to not put their prices up because they don't want to upset customers, which I understand.
Yeah.
How can we challenge that and help those businesses who might be stuck in this position?
So this is a really bad idea, and it comes back to where we started this conversation. They think they're making a rational decision, but the reality is it's fear that's stopping them taking action because they don't want to upset their customers. Even worse than that, inflation is massively eating into their profits. So if we just go back pre-COVID, back to 2020, for the previous decade in the UK, inflation had been really low, right? No more than 2% a year or thereabouts. But over 10 years, even at 2% a year, if I asked you, if you had £100 at the start of the decade in 2010, do you know what its equivalent buying power would be at the end of the decade in 2020? Allowing for normal level of inflation? Have a guess.
From £100, it's going to be what's that? 2% every year.
Yep.
85 quid, 90 quid, something like that.
Yeah, not bad. It's lower. It's about 70, 75 pounds.
Wow.
So the point is this: over 10 years at normal inflation, £100 deteriorates in value to about 70, 75 pounds, and it will have the same impact on your margins. Right. So if you're earning £100 10 years ago and you're still only charging £100 today, your net profitability has gone down because of inflation. Now you magnify that with inflation having rocketed up to 10% last Christmas. It's back down to 6.7% now, and it should come back down again next year. If that client you were talking to the other day honestly hasn't done anything with their pricing in the last 5 years, they're just going backwards in terms of profitability, and it's fear that's stopping them taking action, and they have no idea, no knowledge, no skill in how to think about improving their pricing and do it in a way that's acceptable to customers. It's not always a bad news story. You have to think about price improvement as a sales task. So we avoid any negative language. We don't go in saying, oh, we're really sorry, we apologize, unfortunately. You would never use those words in a new sales prospecting conversation, would you? So we don't use them in a price increase conversation. We keep it neutral or positive. So we say, look, and it's fine to blame cost increases. So, like most businesses, we've experienced cost increases of X over the last year. So from 1st of January, we're going to be increasing our prices by Y. But then you have to communicate the reasons why people should continue buying from you. So all of your USPs, your benefits, your value proposition, your investment story. So what are you investing going to do with those, those higher price benefits, and how are you investing in your business so that it's going to benefit the customer next year? So more staff, better customer service, wider product range, innovation, whatever's relevant or important. Tell your investment story as a way to justify and support the price improvement that you're seeking. And then plan it out by each individual customer. If you've got 100 customers, do an exercise on each of them and assess their price sensitivity and their business impact if you were to lose them. And just so you're doing some work on your pricing, right? And those are the kind of things that can really then give you the confidence to go out to market with a new price point.
I like how you suggest to break it down by almost by personas, sectors.
Yeah.
How price sensitive are they? Not just a blanket price increase, but let's figure this out independently. And I was staggered. It was, I think, 2019. So probably 4 years they've not raised their prices because they're scared. Like you say, they're scared. My competitors. So they're busy. They're making the pound note value. They're a big company.
Top line.
Just eroding.
Yeah.
Eroding their margin through inflation.
Yeah.
Staggering, isn't it? Really is.
Not great.
Let's try and end it on a positive, Mark.
Yes.
3 positive takeaways or quick actions that sales teams, leaders, managing directors, business owners can take away from this discussion around price. What would you suggest people do?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is just to get past this fear, blocker that's stopping people taking action. Recognize that in yourself. Yes, honestly, I am a bit scared of having those price conversations, and then finding out, how else can we think about pricing? Because I bet the way you do it today is the way you've always been doing it, right? So, your marketing strategy, for example, has to evolve every year, right? You would never stand still with your marketing. So why can't the same be said for your pricing? It's got to evolve every year. So have a look at different ways that you could consider for your pricing. Secondly, if you're getting stuck with, well, what about customer X? Just think about pricing for new business only. So for new customers, new prospects who haven't had any previous insight into your price levels, just start with them and try to have a month's campaign in January and say, right, we're going to try a new pricing offer, not a discount, an improvement in January, and we'll see how we get on. And then thirdly, I think about how you can change your price propositions. So the multi-option idea that I talked about, you can do that in any business, whether it's product, manufacturing, service, IT, digital, whatever it is. You can create a 3-tier offer, a low, medium, and high offer, and then communicate, the highest first. So go back to the loss aversion idea. So communicate your highest price first, then your mid-range, then your entry price. And if you do it properly, you should A, sell more, and B, sell more at a high price. So those would be my 3 tips, I think, from today, Rob.
I think that's 3 very good summary points around our discussion on price. Mark, if people wanted to find your book, which is obviously packed with full strategies and breakdowns about what we've been discussing here, where can we find out about your work, your connection? Tell us where we can find you.
So easiest thing to do is go to my website, which is pricemaker.co.uk. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Mark Peacock, the Price Maker, or you can have a look on Amazon or any other book retailer for my book called Pricing for Success. So thank you for that, Rob. Thank you for allowing me to plug my services a little as well.
No, that's great. And thank you for your time. I think price is as you've recognized, it's an often underspoken topic with that, but it has tremendous importance. So thank you very much for sharing your insights and your time with us today, Mark. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, pleasure, Rob. Great to have a chat with you.
Take care.